Welcome to my lecture on the second chapter from the Business Intelligence book, Data Warehousing. So let's first start with the definition of data warehouse. A data warehouse is a subject-oriented, integrated, time-variant, non-updatable collection of data. So you saw these four terms used in the definition. So let's and try to understand what does these four terms mean. The first one being subject oriented. What subject oriented it means is that in a data warehouse, uh, if you're looking at a certain subject, whether it's customer or student or patient, you will get every kind of data available for the subject. So, for example, if let's see if you are using an application called Web Advisor, or because I have a little bit more administrative rights on Advisor. So when I open Web Advisor, I can see information, certain specific information about students. On the other hand, when I go on Blackboard, I have a certain different kind of information available about students, what classes they are in right now, what's their grade right now. On Web Advisor, I can see what kind of MBA you are doing, what is your anticipated graduation date. So on different kind of databases, you have different kind of information available. But in a data warehouse, since it's a collection of various databases, you will be able to see every kind of information. So for example, student. So let's say if our university have a database on student, if I want to look at student ABC, and in a data warehouse, it will show me, okay, so this student, we send him a letter, two letters, two promotional materials on this date. This date, the student inquired about our MBA program. This date, the student joined our MBA program, and then this was the student progress over next 2 years. This is the student's graduation date. Now the student has become alumni. These are the last two times we shamelessly contacted you to give us money, and so you have given us money last time. So I can see every kind of contact, every kind of information about that subject. That's the first part of data warehouse. Number two, integrate. As I just mentioned in the previous point, that in a data warehouse, since you are integrating various databases, so you have a consistent format with consistent naming convention. So for example, in one database, you might call a customer as, you might store information about customer as first name, last name. In another database, you might store information about a customer as F name, L name. Another database, you might even just have name. Another database, you might call it customer name, customer last name. So in a data warehouse, all these naming conventions are combined together. All this data from various sources is combined together. Unlike a database, in a database or a database shows you the current information as what is happening right now. On the other hand, in a data warehouse, you can access all the historical information. So what your data warehouse does is, depending on your organization procedures, rules, it will go, let's say, once a week and take a snapshot of your database, and it will store that information. So it will go back again a week later, again take a snapshot of your database and store that information. So in a data warehouse, you can see how my databases looked 6 months back, a year back, 5 years back. On the other hand, in a database, you only see what's happening right now, non-updatable. Information entered to a data warehouse is cannot be edited, cannot be, if you can delete it, but it is non-editable. Once the information has been uploaded, it's read only. You cannot change it or update it. So these are the four main things uh, which explain the concept of data warehouse. So what's that need of data warehouse? With the advent of e-commerce, advent of smartphones, mobile phones, nowadays organization, Walmart, Bueller's, Amazon, Netflix, Facebook, they're they're collecting huge amount of data, but as the saying goes, that nowadays organizations are drowning in data but starving for information. So it means is that organizations are they're very easily able to collect huge amount of data, but they are not able to convert that data into meaningful information, because that means you have to apply some sort of business intelligence tools or analytical tools. So that is a little bit more difficult process. Some of the other reason for need of data warehouses, that the field of IT grew so rapidly over the last 10, 15, 20 years, that there was 10 years back, 15 years back, or 20 years back, the organization didn't have a vision that this is how we will adopt IT throughout the organization. At that time, if a finance department needed something automated or they needed an application, they just went out, hired a team, and they developed their application for them. So it very well could have very well happened, and it's a very common problem that in your organization, one department uses Oracle, other department uses DB2, third department uses Sybase. Everybody have their own format, their own way of storing data. And the reason for that is because IT grew so rapidly. Then the third reason is corporate merger and acquisition. We keep on seeing uh, corporate mergers happening, acquisition happening, as we have seen recently with JM Smokers. They had so many big acquisition happening in last 5 years. So just to give an example, when a merger happen or an acquisition happens, the company looks at the business case, that does it make sense for us to acquire or merge with this company. They don't worry about what kind of systems or databases they are using. But once the merger has happened or acquisition has happened, then now the job of IT department that their application could now talk to your application. What if their applications are Microsoft based and your applications are Oracle based? So you have to find some way connecting them. And what can do that? Data warehouse. As I mentioned earlier, uh, some of the reasons for data warehouses, you have inconsistent key structures, different naming conventions, missing data, and all, which makes it, uh, which is the reason that we need data warehouse provide us a consistent format of the data. So if you, this is a diagram of how a top level diagram of how a database process works. So you in your organization you will have various databases, supply database, customer database, billing database, human resource database. All these databases are updated, run by different departments. Then you have your data, if you have a website, which most of the companies does, you have your web user data. Add to that your social media data, Twitter data, Facebook data of your engagement with the consumer. And then you bring all the data together in this data staging stage where the data is reformatted, a consistent format is put on it, and then it's loaded on DVMS. And at DVMS stage, the data has been combined from all these various sources and has a consistent format. And from there, your executives, your middle level managers can run queries, can make reports, do various data analysis. So you can think of that this data warehouse is sort of a feeder in all the business tools or your analytical tools. So feeds data into all these tools all this analytical or business intelligence tools. So some of the reasons leading to data warehousing is, uh, every year the computational power of computers doubles. So on one hand, our computers are their computational power is getting double every 18 months, and on the other hand, the cost to storing data is becoming half or reducing by 50% every 18 months. So what that means is that cost to store data is going down, cost to analyze data is also going down because your computation is increasing. So advance in computer hardware and advances in middleware, which is very important. What middleware does is it's a tool, it's a we call it as an application, which enables us to connect various different kind of technologies. So, for example, it allows us to connect an Oracle-based application with a Microsoft or an SAP-based application. There's two applications made by different vendors, one in Java, maybe one in DB, can now talk to each other. So middle level, where you can think of it as a bridge, which connects different kind of databases, different kind of applications together, so the data can be pulled, collected, as well as flow between various such applications. As I mentioned earlier in the figure, sources of data for data warehouse, internal sources, you have external sources, and nowadays the website data, social media data has become a big part of it. Okay, so now we have talked about data warehouse. Next, let's talk about data marts. Now, what is this data mart? Let me go back to my figure. Okay, so here you see this data mart here. So once an organization has data warehouse set up, all the data is there. The data is there in the data warehouse. Uh, it sometimes it becomes overwhelming for somebody who's analyzing the data to pull to get the data from a data warehouse. So, for example, if in my previous example, where let's say we have a data warehouse for students, and I can say the see all the information from the day one. We send you some promotional material asking you to come to Ashland University all the way to when you become an alumni. So maybe I might not, somebody who's doing data analysis on students might not be interested in all that data. He or she maybe the data analyst will see, okay, show me all the data of Ashland University MBA alumni. And that's what data mart is. Data mart is of your data warehouse. So you have this huge data warehouse where all these databases have been combined together, and then maybe you're slicing a data, slicing this data warehouse depending on your interest, what you need from it. So data mart can be considered as a data warehouse or as a slices of data warehouse, depending on what you need. And now there are two kind of data warehouse: dependent data mart and independent data mart. Now, what are those? Dependent data mart and independent data mart. Once you have this data warehouse in your organization and you did a slice, you took a slice, virtual slice, or not really you're slicing a data warehouse, but just a virtual slice of that data, and you sort of pull that data from it. So you might have data mart, sales data mart, customer service data mart. So you're creating this various data marts based on your interests, which are dependent on data warehouse to create these sub data marts. And these are called dependent data marts. Now, what is independent data mart? So for some organization, as you can see, creating this data warehouse is a very complex and a very difficult and very technical process. Even though nowadays most of the organizations or bigger organizations have it, but it's still a very time consuming, very long-term process. So what some companies does is that instead of creating a data warehouse mining, their data sources together. They said, we don't have so much resources, we don't have so much money. Let's start building small data marts. So let's say I'm interested in the sales part of my data, combine all the databases related to sales aspect. So instead of creating this huge data warehouse, all the subject matters, all the topics were combined together, I created a small data mart depending on what my need is. So those are called independent data marts. So you created 2, 3, 4, 5 such independent data marts. So those are called independent data mart. Where I'm sorry, let me go back again. Where instead of going from this process, input, data staging, loading into data warehouse, and taking a slice up, you started from here. You said, okay, we need customer service integrated data. So you that's where you started. So you went from here and you pulled only this customer service relevant data from all these various databases, and you just ignore the other kind of data you have. So that way you can do this mini data warehouse, or what we call this independent data mart, in a much more quicker fashion. That's what the difference between these two are. Looking at the architecture of data warehouse, you have two-tier architecture, three-tier architecture, right here as well. In a two-tier, generally nowadays most of the organizations have three-tier or higher higher architecture. You have excuse me, database server, application server, which is connected to various clients. So if there are 50, 100 clients, employees, when they want to pull data from data warehouse, they have an in-between layer called application layer, which sort of helps the clients to pull the relevant data they have. And the database server job is only to store data. So this is your basic data warehouse architecture. Web-based architecture, exactly same as this at a very simple level. The only thing difference is that in addition to application servers, since now we have clients coming through internet or through web as well, we add a web server to it as well, allowing clients to come via web as well. So there are various data warehouse architectures. Some of them are very integrated. I have a basic understanding of independent data mart bus, hub and spoke, centralized and federated data warehouse. I have limited knowledge too. If you go to an organization, data warehouse administrators or data warehouse people are the highest paid people. It's a very specific job. They are not part of IT or MIS because of the nature of their work. They are a different department because work is so complex, and it's a very in demand technical field. As to development of, depending on whatever architecture you go with, in addition to that, sorry, there are two approaches of developing data warehouse. These two approaches are based on the two people who suggested those approach or model. One is called in-on model, and other one is called Kimball model. So these two people have suggested different approaches. In Moen model is top-down approach where it suggests that you create the whole data warehouse and then use it. And the Kimball model asks or presents a data mart approach where it says you start creating small data marts, and maybe 10 data marts over the next 5-10 years. Those having 10 data marts means you have covered all the subject areas. That will in itself result in having a full data warehouse. So Kimball model means that start creating a small piece of data warehouse at a time depending on your needs, and over a period of time, since you will create so many data marts, that in itself will result in Both approaches are, there's no good approach or bad approach. It depends on the size of the organization, resources you have, and what your specific needs are. If somebody in the class is interested, there's a very good academic paper which goes into detail about Inmon and Kimball model. I can send you the PDF file if anybody's interested. Send me an email and I'll send you the PDF file for it. For successful database implementation, this slide and next slides are quite similar. So what I would suggest, what I would talk commonly, have in common in both these slides is, the first thing for data warehouse implementation is that you need a management support for implementing data warehouse. The reason for that is that you are pulling data from every department, every unit of your organization. So the data warehouse sort of department or data warehouse initiative, everybody in the organization, and for everybody to cooperate with you, for you to pull data from each application, you need the management, the upper management support. The other things to avoid is that when designing data warehouse approach or data warehouse initiative, it should not be thought as designing a database application, because database application is much more smaller, easy to design, and compared to a data warehouse. Some of the other reasons for failures of database project is unrealistic expectation. Companies think that once they have created this data warehouse, they've combined all their databases together. Now they will become very analytical organization. All their decisions will be based on this amazing clean data, and they can take all the decisions they want based on this data analysis. That is not the case. The data warehouse is only a feeder into other applications. You still have to have a business intelligence tool, in which we talked in first chapter, and that the business intelligence tools or using them as itself is a cultural change. The other thing is, there's a saying in data, related to data, garbage in, garbage out. So if your company is collecting bad data, missing data in its databases, that kind of data will further go into your data warehouse. So if you have low data quality or missing information, having data warehouse will not help you much, because that low data quality will further be carried over in the data warehouse as well. I'll come back to this picture when we'll be talking about data analytics chapter a little bit later. Future of data warehouse, we are seeing more and more open source data warehouse being offered, being accepted. Right now, one of the most dominant, right now the dominant products are proprietary products, mainly from Oracle and IBM. But we are seeing open source software also being used. Some of the companies have also started using cloud computing or software as a service, where instead of a company implementing a data warehouse, they let an external company does it, and they provide this integration of data as a service. We are seeing data warehouse now being connected to mobile phone, to analytical applications, and then as the computing power of machine servers, computers are increasing, seeing better and better data analysis being done, especially for companies like Facebook, Uber, Pinterest, where they have billions rows of data. So to manage that kind of data, you need a data warehouse. And as we are seeing more and more application like a simple application, we are seeing Nest thermostat from Google. Lot of homes are using that, and that data. So can you imagine Google having maybe a million such thermostats out there, which is sending them data every 15 minutes, 30 minutes about the temperature of the home? Just to give you an example, if you look at your data, or your iPhone data. So we are nowadays collecting a lot of data and store it and analyze it. We do need a data warehouse platform, and then to be able to analyze it. That chapter. Our next chapter is chapter number 3, business reporting, visual analytics, and business process management.